One of the most is what Peter wrote shortly before the. There are many precious and vital truths for us to remember all through the Bible. One passage containing such has to be Hebrews 11:15 and 16. There we learn this. If they had been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had opportunity to return. Instead, they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. The context shows the subjects of the plural pronoun they are Abel, Enoch, Noah, and Abraham. Now ponder these facts about those righteous men and how to prevent your own spiritual backsliding. That passage shows that those righteous men would have allowed an opportunity for themselves to backslide if they had been thinking about their past lives in the country they had left. Instead of their thoughts being on the past, where the devil would certainly like to keep them, those same righteous men were thinking and pondering about something else, a heavenly country awaiting them. Again, it says that they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. That word longing in the Greek can be translated reach out after, long for, covet after, desire. That is where their hearts were and what they truly wanted. They wanted to get into the heavenly country also called New Jerusalem. It is vital for righteous people today to live like they did. We must guard our thought life as they did, for that is where the devil will come tempting. You remember what happened to the majority of the Israelites after they had been miraculously delivered by God from cruel Egyptian bondage? They started to think of the so-called good times they had while in Egyptian bondage. Numbers 11:5 reads, "We remember the fish we ate in Egypt at no cost. Also the cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic." Many of the Israelites became discontent with God's provisions and wanted to return to Egypt where their lives were made bitter. Imagine that. The temptations for them was mainly over fish, cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic that they ate while in cruel slavery. Though the Bible isn't clear, certainly it was the devil that reminded the Israelites of these foods and how tasty they can be. Somehow, they forgot the misery they had while in Egypt. The devil didn't remind them of that. Remember also Lot's wife who looked back and turned into a pillar of salt. The devil, your enemy, will do the same with you. He will remind you of your past life before you repented and committed your life to Christ. Folks, the truth is there is not really anything to look back to. If you are truly saved, to look back to your past life is to look back to spiritual death, darkness, and slavery to sin while you were on the road to eternal punishment in eternal, unquenchable, and raging fire. Only a deceived person will look back and desire such after being delivered and promised a paradise future. The devil wants you in hell with him. He's trying to destroy the glorious future you have prepared by God for you beyond the grave. We must walk guarded at all times. Now getting back to Hebrews 11:15 and 16 again, that passage goes on to say, because they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one, God was not ashamed to be called their God. We don't usually think that God would be ashamed of anyone to call him his God, but that is not what this is saying. God does seem to be ashamed if people call him his God if they are not longing for a heavenly country now. The last part of verse 16 is very important. It not only shows that God has prepared a city, namely the holy city New Jerusalem, for the righteous and not himself, but here it describes those who will go there. Who will go there? The people who will enter that city prepared by God long for heaven. This implies the persecutions and troubles they had while living holy and obediently to the Lord here and now. Certainly the same had lonely, perplexing, and painful trials through their life. They wanted to get out of this sin-filled, demon-infested, and cursed age and go home to be with their true spiritual family in God's kingdom. Again, they longed for heaven. Nothing or no one on earth had a grip on their heart. They wanted to go and be with their God. In this life, we could say they were like a fish out of water. They were misfits. Jesus described his disciples in John 17:14 as being hated by the world and not being of this world any more than he is of this world. Does that describe you? Answer. that salvation-related question for yourself. We also could accurately say, based on Hebrews 11, 15, and 16, that the holy city was prepared by the holy God for holy people. Here, those holy people were shown to be people who were longing for a much better place to eternally dwell in, which is better by far compared to this life, according to Philippians 1:23. Jesus called it paradise. Listen again to Hebrews 11, 15, and 16 with the pronoun they amplified. If they, Abel, Enoch, Noah, and Abraham, had been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had opportunity to return. Instead, they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he prepared a city for them. Isn't that passage filled with precious truths? It would help you to commit those two verses to memory and ponder them regularly. Remember, look ahead and not back. Exciting and wonderful times are awaiting the overcomers, those who are faithful to God to the very end. God bless you.
Can you imagine what it would be like to die and to go to hell? Try to imagine the regret and deep anguish for those who wake up in this horrible place prepared for the devil and his angels. As bad as that will be, even a greater surprise is awaiting the ones who believed in the security in sin gospel, commonly called eternal security. They died in a lost condition. They thought even for years that they would most assuredly go to heaven after their death, because they were once saved. But instead, they go to hell. This is how it will be for multitudes. Will you help us reach these and others before it's eternally too late? Please visit our website at www.evangelicaloutreach.org and order our 800-page book, Refuting the Teaching of Eternal Security. And God